Alright, so it is now officially the end of my intermittent fasting weight loss journey, and I must say, the results are pretty good, in my opinion, in just the span of 30 days. So if you followed me in each episode, you'd know that the first day I decided to do one meal a day for the purpose of just losing water weight. So that went pretty well, just like in a previous episode. I ended up fasting a lot longer than 24 hours, but that's okay. My only purpose for doing so was to get rid of a majority of the water weight so that I can see my actual weight that I'm sitting at the moment. So after I did that, I went ahead and started doing 16-8, which is where I fast for 16 hours and have an 8-hour eating window, and also chose just to eat whatever the heck I wanted, as long as I continued to be in a calorie deficit and following my specific fasting protocol. I also chose to do that for about 6 to 7 days, and after that, for the next following days until now, I decided to do 19-5, which is where I fast for 19 hours and have a 5-hour eating window, and decided to really dial in my diet to make sure that weight continues to go down. So that's basically what I did. I didn't have any official cheat days within those 30 days, but I did eat out a couple of times, especially with friends, and I will say that a majority of those times were unplanned, and I would also say that perhaps the first time was kind of planned, but the other cheat days were most definitely not. But even with those cheat days happening, I was still able to make adjustments where I told myself, okay, obviously I'm in a big surplus, so because of that, I decided to fix those mistakes, even though I technically had no regrets eating out like that. So I decided to fix those mistakes by eating better and following my fasting protocol the following days. In terms of what I ate, I obviously showed you guys in the previous episode, and I'm also going to be completely transparent. That is not how I ate every day, and that was just a general idea of what I eat in a day, but the other 29 days were completely different. I didn't follow any specific diet. I just pretty much ate whatever I wanted and ate in a way that I thought was healthy, and the results of that were pretty good. So as I said before at the start of this challenge, my starting weight was 142 to 143 pounds, and I didn't really have a specific goal in mind in terms of what weight I wanted to hit, so basically it didn't really matter to me as long as I saw that my weight was continuing to go down, and that was it. Now, when it came to weighing myself every day, I woke up around 6 a.m., so that's when I do it, and I do it with all my clothes off just to make sure I get the most accurate weight possible, with no food and no liquid in me yet, so that I know. So that was how I approached measuring my weight. And also when it came to my fasting window and eating window, since I start my work at 7 a.m., my lunch is almost always around 11 to 11:30, so the routine would look something like, for example, if I was doing 16-8, I would have my first meal around 11 to 11:30 a.m. and my last one around 7:30 to 8 p.m. And then when I moved on to 19-5, I would have my first meal around 11 to 11:30 a.m. and my last meal around 4:30 to 5 p.m. Something like that. It wasn't always perfect, and by that I mean ending my meals at like 4:30 or 5 p.m. exactly. My energy levels were good, my focus, my mood, and my lifts in the gym did go down, not drastically, but they most definitely went down, which is normal, but overall my willpower stayed the same, just because I'm so used to doing this all the time. And in terms of calories, I did try to stay around 1,200 to 1,500 calories a day just to make sure my weight continued to go down. But again, like I said, it wasn't always like that, especially with those unexpected eat-outs. So there's that. So if someone were to ask me if I had any struggles, I would say I didn't really have any, but if I had to be nitpicky about it, it was probably trying to bring myself to say no to friends when it came to eating out. But I wasn't able to do that, but still was able to adjust for it and still made progress anyway. So yeah. Did I have any cravings or emotional eating? I would have to say no. I'm not really like that now when it comes to fasting. And when I started my weight loss journey from day 1 to 30, did it get any easier? Honestly, no. But it really wasn't that bad since I did have a game plan. So because of that game plan, it really wasn't any struggle whatsoever. In terms of getting my Z's, it wasn't really affected, at least when it came to the fasting weight loss journey, but it was affected, as a matter of fact, mainly because of work, so it had nothing to do with the weight loss journey. Now, for my workout routine, I did try to be consistent, working out 6 days a week following a push-pull legs routine, and I would say it definitely helped alongside the weight loss journey because I did try to involve cardio at the end of each workout, which was mostly just walking on a treadmill, and that's it. With all that said, how many pounds did I lose? Well, I would have to say I lost a total of 10 pounds within a span of 30 30 days, and this is what the results look like. Have a look at that and allow me to talk more about what I learned within the span of these 30 days. So my mindset from day one was pretty much the same. I already knew what I was doing, so it was relatively easy. And I also want to say that I was surprised on how fast I actually lost the weight. My expectation was losing 4 to 5 pounds, but it was a lot more than I expected, so there's that. And when it came to my results, I would say the thing that made the biggest difference was, first of all, how early I started the fast, meaning a majority of the time I would stop, or rather I would have my last meal around 4 to 5 p.m. alongside ending the day with cardio. That made a super huge difference because the weight changes were very good. So I think that if I didn't implement that, the progress would be a tad bit slower. Still there, but slower. And yeah, that definitely made a difference. Now, if I could do this whole fasting weight loss journey all over again, what would I do differently? I would have to say, firstly, saying no to everything that I know for a fact is going to slow me down. For example, eating out with friends. As hard as it is for me to say, it's the truth. It would have definitely sped up my progress. And another thing I would say is planning my meals better. And by that, I mean I did have a meal plan in advance, but it wasn't as in-depth as I wanted it to be. So yeah, I think those would be the two main things that I would have done differently. Other than that, I would do everything almost exactly the same. Now, if you were ever to embark on this intermittent fasting weight loss journey, my advice for you would have to be to stay very consistent and at the same time not to be as aggressive as I was when doing this 30-day challenge. I do think that it was a little bit on the faster side, no pun intended. And I think that if someone else were to approach it, especially a beginner, I do recommend that they approach it in a more relaxed and slower pace, so that way they don't tax their body too much. And also to keep in mind that a calorie deficit is number one when it comes to actually making this whole thing work. Also making sure to dial in your diet by eating healthier and better and less of the bad stuff and more of the good stuff. And just to focus on the journey itself. We all have to remember that a journey is called a journey for a reason, meaning that it takes time. It's not something that you rush. It's something where you're 100% of the time going to make mistakes, but it's what you do after those mistakes that make the biggest difference. So yeah, to summarize, be in a calorie deficit every day, if not most days, implementing intermittent fasting if you want to. Be consistent, be patient, eat healthier, meaning eat more of the good food and less of the bad food. Work out to speed up the process a little more, and don't give up. That's what I would say for any of you wanting to try this out for yourself. And again, I really want to emphasize, take your time. All right, so there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this little intermittent fasting weight loss journey of mine, 2025 edition, and hopefully you learned a lot of things as well. And I'm looking forward to doing a 2026 edition of this again in the near future. So with all that said, I'm hoping you enjoyed this whole journey of mine. And if you did, go ahead and let me know by giving this video a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next one.